and give a update on a heritage project using some trail cams to monitor some bear activity.
Yours on PowerPoint too, Carl?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go back down.
Can we hit those lights again? Where were those at? This is going to be really, really brief. Just kind of wanted to give an update on the two heritage projects. We're actually doing 4 different black bear monitoring projects right now. 2 of them are heritage. One was the DNA project, 1312, first approved in 2012. Looking at the dispersal and immigration rates using genetic analysis. And then the second one, the reproductive success in wildland females. We're also involved with that habitat selection modeling with the gal from Columbia University. We're looking at hopefully getting some models on that really, really quickly. The DNA, the genetic analysis with Dr. Matok and Jason Mullaney there at UNR. We've given them well over 500 samples due to some other projects they're involved with. They were granted an extension last year and again this year, but I've been assured that they're going to have preliminary results by November and hopefully some maps similar to what California produced and to what Allison Andreessen produced for her genetic analysis on cougars in Nevada, or at least that's what I'm hoping for out of this project. The wildland female study, we were given $30,000 in 2012. I've taken that down to about the last $14. Initially, we purchased 8 collars for this project. And again, we are looking at collaring specifically adult females, breeding age females, to look at reproduction potential, reproductive success, and then juvenile recruitment into the population. Since 2012, we've collared 16 bears total. We've had some die, some dropped collars. We removed one of the collars on a female that ended up being more of a urban conflict type bear than a wildland bear. 10 bears are currently on the air. We collared 2 just in the last 3 weeks. For the last 2 years, we've been doing a snaring project, capture project in the Pine Nuts, in the Carson Range, and in this year in the Wasatch over by Mount Grant, using biologists from around the state coming up, camping out for a few days, and capturing bears. And that's been pretty successful. And then the intent is to den. These are all satellite collars. And then we'll be going in and denning those females during the winter of the first year, marking the newborn cubs that are present, sexing them, taking DNA samples, and then monitoring those bears, those dens again the following year, and looking at juvenile recruitment. In other words, the cubs that survive from one winter to the next, we consider that recruitment into the population. Various reasons we're not able to den every single bear that's collared. Several dens are inaccessible due to snow. One was on the military base down there in Hawthorne. Went to one den this year. First den we went to, and the female was dead in the den, had been so for quite some time. So in all, we've marked 14 cubs of the year in dens. And again, recruitment. This is an example here of a younger bear, not part of the Heritage Project, but one that we marked in the den in 2011. And then last year, 2013, as a 2-year-old, it was caught during the snaring project and identified because of the pit tag that we had inserted. So that was pretty interesting. current collar distribution or the collar distribution from the Heritage Project, 6 in the Carson Range, 6 in the Pine Nut Mountains, 1 over there in the Wasatch by Mount Grant, 1 in the Sweetwaters. That was the one that was dead this year. And then we've got 2 that were actually captured and collared closer to home and have since migrated. One of these was a female caught in Carson City, downtown Carson last year. She was released by one of the game wardens up at Marlette Lake. She came right back down to Carson. So we captured her, put a collar on her. I wasn't involved with the first capture, but I was on the second one. And put a collar on her, released her down south of Wellington, tried to get her out of the Carson area for a little bit. And she went down by Bridgeport and has continued to stay down there. We denned her down there last year, and she had 2 cubs. For the most part, a wild bear. Some of the drought-induced conflict type stuff that we see, but for the most part, a wild bear. A second bear we caught, one of the game wardens again caught her last year in Gardnerville at Lampe Park and released her down on the East Walker, trying to get her out of that conflict situation. She was caught again this year in Hawthorne, in a backyard in Hawthorne and some fruit trees. So we put a collar on her, again released her down south Wellington in the Pine Grove Hills, and within 1 week she was clear down by Mono Lake. Went back up and over Mount Grant and then down to Mono Lake, when she's pretty much down in that area right now. So we'll monitor her and see if she stays out of trouble. We've been in touch with Cal Fish and Game too, and they're aware of both these bears. Den types, I just threw this in there just for some information. Den types on these bears is pretty typical. Most of them are in some sort of rock, not your typical bear cave, but rock piles where they excavate a den underneath large boulders. We've had them in the fallen logs, hollowed out logs where they excavate the logs, and then open type dens where they're just open to the air, no excavation required. They'll pull down some cedar bark and things like that to make a nest, but they're pretty much exposed dens. And then, of course, on these dens, we've been putting cameras, as the director mentioned, trail cameras after we den these bears, so we can monitor how many cubs actually come out of the dens. Make sure they, the ones that we marked are actually surviving in the dens and coming out. Some of the information, though, that we've received from those dens has been interesting. This female in the pine nuts come out. What she's doing is licking snow. We've got video of her coming out, doing den maintenance, scraping some leaves and twigs and things back into the den. We actually had a video of her removing the cubs out of the den and moving den sites, which was pretty interesting. But that was right after a snowfall, and she came out and she was licking snow, drinking. This female doing a little den maintenance, coming out, looking around. I've really shortened these clips quite a bit. They're actually 30-second and 60-second clips, but some good information. And then what was really interesting, and this is that same female that was just inside that, coming out and doing the den maintenance. She's in a log den up there in the Carson Range. She's had her cubs, picture of her with the cubs inside that den. And this is pure luck, I think, more than anything else, not on her part, but our part. We got pictures of a large male coming in, and if you notice the timestamp on the bottom there, April 6th, there's some things that kind of confound what I'm going to show you here. This female, we had one of the females that we denned in the Carson Range. She abandoned the den, and we took both of her cubs and fostered them to other females. And fostering cubs of the year is very successful. Bears will readily accept another bear's cubs. There were a bear back in Maine that actually adopted somebody's beagle pup that fell into the den. And the guys had to go back into the den several days later and dart the mom just to get the puppy back. So that's not uncommon at all, but we fostered one of those cubs to this female here, and both fosters were successful, as evidenced by, we had video of those cubs and pictures of those cubs 3 weeks post-fostering with the females. So the fosterings themselves were successful. And this is about 3 weeks after the foster. This big male comes in, and just notice the time. He immediately starts to dig out the den. It takes him very little time to do it, and as you can see, he's a really, really big bear. You can zoom in on those teeth and kind of get an estimate on age based on those canines. He's a fairly old bear as well. Takes him approximately 35 minutes to dig out the den and commit the infanticide. And this is not uncommon for males to go in and kill the cubs of other females. There's some different theories on why it happens, but again, it's not undocumented, it's not uncommon. I think what is uncommon is to have it on film and actually get pictures of it. Now you'll notice the one dead cub right there. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's a dead cub there, and he is in the process of killing the female. And again, this is not, it's been documented, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's common. More than likely, she was very defensive in her protection of the cubs and cost her life. So he kills the one cub, kills her, and there's a better picture of it. That's her, she's on her back, and that's her left ear tag and her leg. And she's about 180, maybe 200 pounds, so you can tell the size of that male. He's pretty big. Kills her, drags her off, and comes back. And this is half an hour now after he excavated the den. Again, that may be kind of hard to see, but that's her in the background. She's been killed, and she's back there laying on her back. He comes back in and consumes the cub that he had just killed, and then spends the next 3 days. We have pictures of all this, which again is kind of the remarkable part, but he's in the background for the next 3 days consuming the female. This is 3 days later. The other two cubs come out of the den, the little black one being the one that we fostered. They come out, and as you can see by that lower right-hand photo, he's immediately there. Heard them coming out, more than likely, came right back over, goes into the den, and kills at least one of those cubs. The little black one is visible there in that picture, dead now. He spent a total of 12 days or 16 days on site consuming the female. We had coyotes coming in, ravens coming in, but he was there picking at her for at least 12 days that we know of, which was obviously not a starving bear. He looks like he's in very, very good shape. So it's hard to say if it was predatory in nature or just opportunistic. But I'm going to end it on somewhat happier note, because it really it was really unfortunate. We had we had fostered those cubs. The two that we fostered, they had to be bottle fed for a day until we could get them into those other dens, and then to have that happen kind of bit, but it was reality, and it was really interesting to see. We've got several more callers to deploy now coming up, thanks to some individuals that I'll mention here real quick. Nevada Bighorns Unlimited gave us $20,000 a couple months ago. We purchased 5 more collars with that money. 2 of those were deployed on female bears during this year's capture project. Safari Club Reno gave us $5,000 for another collar, and then 2 private individuals have both donated to the bear research. One of them bought us a collar, and one of them donated to the DNA study. So I want to thank those guys. And again, my intention here was to be really brief, so if there are any questions on that, I'll take them.
questions of the commission? Any comments? Commissioner McNinch?
Just one quick comment. I really appreciate hearing, I think this is a good way to approach these. It's good to hear about these projects, and Pat and Carl, you guys did a great job of just giving us a real quick rundown. I really appreciate it. It's not for lack of questions. I think it's, the interest is definitely there. I'm just not sure what questions to ask, but it's good to hear these projects, and I appreciate that they're coming in front of us, and I hope we can do some more of that, so.
Any other comments or questions? Do you have anything to add, Director Wasley?
No, I guess really just if there's a future desire, any of the commissioners have questions or certain projects that they'd like updates on, communicate that to us, and we'll do our best to get it on a relevant agenda.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 21, Wildlife Heritage Committee, Commissioner Wallace and